Okay, it's time for more money. We take a look at the NBA with Matt Moore and Jay Money, both of the Action Network. They contribute to the Buckets podcast. You can find them in the app, covering all things in the association. We're going to start things off with some topics in the Western Conference. The Nuggets are the clear favorite. Make no mistake. Clippers in second, even though they're in fourth place in the conference. The Thunder, the Suns, the Mavs, the Wolves, they're all in the discussion here to come out of the conference. So Matt Moore, I throw this at you first. Western Conference won't be the 1 seed or the 2 seed. Who is the long shot that you might see coming out of the West?
I'll take Dallas here. I like the Mavericks in this spot. I kind of want to buy into the Pelicans, but every time I see them in a big game environment, they seem to wilt. Versus the Mavericks have this tendency to kind of sneak out some pretty big wins. With Daniel Gafford now providing a backup or replacement for Derek Lively, they've got a rim runner and screen setter on the floor at all times. They're seeing great defense from PJ Washington. They're actually 7th in defense since the trade deadline. That's really promising, though it is against a pretty weak schedule of opponents. And you got Luka. You got Luka, and Kyrie can have a big game as well, but you got Luka Doncic, so which means that in most series you're going to have the best player on the floor against everybody except maybe Denver, maybe OKC if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can level up. You're going to have the best player. I think most people would think that Luka is better than Shai. So you're going to have the best player in almost any series. Their offense is unstoppable. If they can just get enough stops from the defense, if they can figure out ways to play defense against these specific opponents they play, even if their defense isn't great, if they can just cause problems, I think they have what it takes in order to make a run. Seeding is going to be very important in terms of where they land, but if they're outside of Denver's bracket, I think they can make it to the Western Conference Finals.
Jay Money, how about you? We still know the 1 seed is it's still up for grabs, but based on pricing, there's a team that emerges to you.
Yeah, I'd go with the Minnesota Timberwolves here. Defense really matters in the playoffs when things really slow down and it's a half-court type of game. And I think the Wolves are the best defensive team in the West. Now, I know that their offense can be a little spotty towards the end of games, but I do trust the Wolves defense more than anybody else in the West. And I think in the playoffs, that's what's been shown is that you win with defense. So I think the Wolves, with their defense, Rudy Gobert, I mean, they could possibly even get Karl-Anthony Towns back as well. You have an MVP caliber type of player that could take over a game, and Anthony Edwards. They have good guard play as well. They have a nice bench, Naz Reid coming off the bench. So I think the Wolves have a chance to make some way into the Western Conference Finals.
So based on some of the juggling from last night's results, the Pelicans fell to the 5 seed. Dallas is 6th, and they have a 1-game lead on both the Kings and the Suns. Kings and Suns right now would be in the play-in. So I ask, with the Mavs in the 6, Mavs in the 5 as of today, are the Mavericks and Kings, Matt Moore, both playoff teams?
I think the Mavericks are going to be a playoff team. I think the Pelicans are going to be a playoff team. I don't know about the Kings. They're the one I really don't know about. I think that they are closer to me to the Lakers, the Warriors, that level of inconsistency. And honestly, Phoenix deserves to be there as well. You just simply can't be like, oh yeah, Phoenix is going to make it, when they had an opportunity versus one of the only easy games they have left in San Antonio, and they lose to the Spurs without Wembanyama. That was a devastating loss for them. They have such a hard schedule. Phoenix is very likely to be in the play-in tournament. I don't think the Kings are going to be able to make a run enough if they're too inconsistent. So I think they'll wind up in the 7 and 8. And I will say, I think there's a very good chance that whoever loses that 7-8 matchup loses to the Lakers for the 8th seed. The Lakers, I think, have been a better team than the record all season. It's been proven when they have their guys available, not just LeBron and AD, but particularly Rui Hachimura. Their record with those guys is very, very good. That win versus the Bucks last night helps a ton. I do think the Lakers are going to find their way into the playoffs, and it's going to be at the expense of either the Kings or the Suns.
So Jay Money, basically the question is, does it hold as it stands with the Mavs in the 5 spot and the Pelicans, the Pelicans in the 5 spot and the Mavs in the 6 spot?
Yeah, I believe so. The Mavs could possibly even make it up to 5, but I do think both teams will not be in the play-in tournament. I think that I'm pretty sure it's what you guys are saying. Can they hold the 5 and the 6? So correct. I think the Mavs will probably end at 5 and Pelicans are at 6, but both teams are playing really consistent right now. Even though the Pelicans dropped a game last night, both teams have already shown that they're in playoff form as well. Both of them have won 8 of the last 9 or 8 of the last 10 games as well, and they're 2 really balanced basketball teams as well. And that's what you need here. There are definitely a lot lot more balanced than the lower half of the 7 through 10 spots in the West. So when you can play on when you can play on offense and defense at a consistent rate, that's what shows me that you can play continue to play consistent basketball. So I do think that it might swap a little bit, but I do think Mavs and Pelicans will hold down the 5 and 6 spots.
Yeah, Mavs have won 5 in a row, 9-1 in their last 10, and the Pelicans have won 9 of 12 despite their loss last night to Oklahoma City. Well, let's hit the Clippers here. The Clippers right now have the second best odds to come out of the conference. Matt Moore, why? Why? What should they be? So it's why are the odds the way they are, and do you think they are properly priced?
So they have the odds here. This is a reflection of handle, because when the Clippers went on that run from November, really December through January, they were taking on a lot of money. They're a big market team. Minnesota, Oklahoma City are not. Those teams typically do not take on
big market stars too, right?
Yeah, big market stars. So if you're going to be putting it, if you see the Clippers go on this big run and they've got Kawhi Leonard, that's the kind of team that attracts a lot of handle. That to me is where this number comes from. And it's probably, that's why, even though I think this is a good buy opportunity on the Clippers in terms of the spot, with everyone so out on them, like, oh, same old Clippers, etc., I don't put a lot of stock in that. I think the Clippers have slid because March basketball is messy and gross and not real. I don't really buy into the idea that the Clippers have just fallen apart and aren't going to be able to get it back together. That said, I think that the reason why they're in this spot in the market is because of the amount of money that's already been wagered on them. Now, the question is, like, should they be second in the conference? And I think that's an interesting question here, because what we really kind of get into instead of the Clippers is, are OKC and Minnesota, as Jay mentioned, are they underrated? Are they underpriced in the market based off of the skepticism about the Thunder, based off of their experience and size, and the Wolves based off of their overall profile and their offense? And the answer is probably that those teams are probably underpriced, but I don't know the Clippers are overpriced. I think the Clippers are probably accurately priced in the market as a reflection of where the market thought they were when things were more stable and they were playing really good basketball. They're having a bad stretch of games. I have seen this enough from good teams where they have terrible marches and then they pull out of it at the end and then they're fine. We have a lot of data that basically suggests that you should not overreact to these March games a lot, that they're not very indicative of what happens in the postseason. And that's what I'm sticking with the Clippers.
Okay, that's been happening in the East with Boston, Milwaukee last night. So it's really a league-wide thing, I guess, when you put it like that. So Jay Money, the other reason why this is brought up, because Ty Lue had a quote recently, do we have an identity? And he said, yeah, I think we're soft. So reaction to the Clippers being the second favorite, and should they be?
Yeah, I think that should be. Like Matt said, March doesn't really matter. I mean, some of these teams are really just kind of going through the motions, ready for the playoffs. It doesn't really matter whether you get 1 through what it matters now because the play-in tournament. But obviously, you want to get at least 1 through 6. But it all matters about when you match up versus the team and go and play the games. Whether you're on the road, whether you're at the house, you still have to win 4 games in the series there. And I still think the Clippers have one of the best overall teams in the Western Conference, and they have one of the best coaches as well to make some noise in the playoffs. So I think they know that, and they're also trying not to get injured right now as well. So it's all about matchups and schemes in the playoffs, and the Clippers do have some of the best of both of those matchups and schemes. Still got Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Harden whenever he likes to show up as well. They just got back Westbrook, so this is still a great team, and I would buy them still having the second greatest odds to win the West.
Okay, and speaking of which, you get a big slate tonight. You guys are targeting a few games, and the Clippers play the Sixers in Philly. National TV game. You like the Clippers tonight. Why?
Yeah, I like the Clippers here. Nobody else likes the Clippers. That makes me like them even more. This is a bounce back spot here for them, coming off 2 straight losses at the house, and they were called out by their coach as well. Anytime a coach comes out and says you're soft, you're going to see a reaction from the team. Most likely a bounce back spot for them in their next game. They're also 6-0 against the spread in this particular spot. When heading on the road to go into Central or the Eastern time zone after a home game, they're 6-0 against the spread in this particular spot. Obviously, it's the revenge game. They just lost 3 days ago as well. And you look at the Sixers, they might really run out of gas in this spot. They hadn't had 2 or more days off of rest since February 28th or 29th. They've been playing really tough competition. 9 of their last 10 games has been versus tough teams that's playing really tough competition right now. So I think the Clippers win this game by double digits. I took them -5.5.
You can't help but wonder, too, with the Sixers, if they're just trying to tread water, likely knowing their destiny as a play-in team, and let's get Embiid back, and let's just get through the rest of this year without any more bumps and bruises. So that's something on that end that comes to mind just from watching the games and following the news. Matt Moore, your pick for tonight. Who you got?
Yeah, Jay and I went back a little bit back and forth on this on buckets. You can catch that over on podcast or on youtube.com/the Action Network. I like Nuggets -7 here a lot. Nuggets have rested starters. They rested Jokic and Murray on Saturday. They rested Murray and Gordon on Monday versus teams they knew they could get past. This Phoenix team beat them in Denver 3 weeks ago. The Nuggets do not take that lightly. They do not get over when teams beat them in Denver. That sticks in their craw a little bit. And I think you're going to see the same thing here. Houston managed to do it earlier this season. OKC's done it, so they're a little bit more susceptible, but I think they'll get up for this one. It's a nationally televised game, late start versus an opponent they have played twice in the playoffs. And while I wouldn't necessarily consider this a rivalry, I think Denver gets up for this game in particular. I think they are going to come out with a fully focused effort. I do expect to see the starters back for this game. And when Denver has their starters and are at home, they are a beast to deal with. Suns are banged up. Yusuf Nurkic has a bad ankle. He's questionable. Bradley Beal's got a finger. He's questionable. Even if those guys play, I think Denver smashes here. I think Denver rolls this team as a matter of revenge to make a statement as they continue their march towards #1 seed in the Western Conference.
All righty, keep your ears open for the Buckets podcast. Matt Moore, Jay Money, live edition of Buckets Thursday night on the Action Network YouTube channel starting at 11 p.m. Eastern, reacting to the slate and all things as we gear up for the NBA playoffs. Matt Moore, Jay Money, more money. Thanks for the time, guys.